It's a funny thing. I'm sure you must have had a lot of abuse on Twitter in your time. And I've had a lot of that. And it's a funny thing where, like, if you're on Twitter and you see the thing, there's a compulsion, firstly, to reply because you want to explain yourself. Go, no, hang on, I didn't mean that.
Right.
And also it gets to you. And if you just say to yourself, which I've had to do the last week, I'm just going to get off Twitter.
Right.
I'll have a look in a couple of weeks and won't look at
I mean, I used to be much more sort of aggressive on Twitter than I am now because I'd get stuck into people and, you know, quite often I'd go too far and then I'd get into trouble, and it was like, you know, and so I kind of learned to ignore people, which is what I do now. I just ignore most of the time.
Just ignore it, and then mute them all. And
occasionally I'll look up who they're following and who they're followed by, and quite often they're terrible perverts, and so I'll just, you know, publish all that and go, yeah, maybe you should stick to, you know, the one-handed shandy shuffle, mate, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'm very much of the opinion that there's an awful lot of people with more than one account who are people that perhaps we know who are having a go, you know.
Have you got any?
James O'Brien, for example.
Do you think he uses burner accounts?
I think he does, yeah.
That's your opinion. Do we have to say that?
I don't think so. I think it. I mean, I suppose it's my opinion. I'm not saying he does. I don't have evidence to say that.
You probably have a better grasp of media law than I do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would be that surprising if people found that James O'Brien, who's apparently not on Twitter anymore, but I got into a spat with him and he threatened to sue me. And so much so that he actually sent me a legal letter, you know.
I see.
But
I've got theories about certain people with their burner accounts as well. Very specific people who I won't mention less, you know.
No, we don't need to. And I'm not saying that James O'Brien definitely does, but James O'Brien's another one who has become kind of lost in the sea of his own wilderness and madness, you know, because since Brexit, he hasn't really known. Brexit kind of made him. I knew James O'Brien when he was like a nothing reporter on the Daily Express. And he used to do showbiz reports for William Hickey's column, and he wasn't very good at it. And then after that, he went and did a video review column for the Daily Mail. So he's never been a proper journalist, really. And he's another one who, you know, you hear some of the polemicist type arguments that he makes, you just go, that's just insane what you're trying to convince people of.
I'm amazed he's gotten away with it this long.
But
it is, again, it's this thing of he's arguing with people who are just, you know, are not used to arguing, you know, and I'd love to go on his show and have a word. And just, you know, I'm sure you would as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's just not going to happen.
It's never going to happen. No.
It's just the cowardice of it, the hypocrisy of it.
But LBC's full of people like that, you know. The other one's Sheila Fogarty. I listen because I put it on occasionally just because if I'm in the car, you know, and I'm listening to, I just want to hear what other people are doing. And she once did a thing about shoplifting. And it was so laughable. You just kind of went, what world are you living in, you know? She was talking about how she saw this rather unhealthy-looking guy, very thin, stealing from this shop that she was in at Sainsbury's. And he was stealing baby formula, baby powder, you know? And she said, I felt so sad. I could see that he just wanted to, you know, get that for his baby, you know, because obviously he couldn't afford to buy it. And even on LBC, people ring in going, no, baby powder is used to cut with cocaine. That's why they have it. You know, it's actually sells at a premium because that's what they need it for.
I didn't know that, though, as you were saying.
I actually didn't, right? Yeah, however, I also wasn't going to immediately look at somebody stealing and think that the poor guy's obviously can't afford to feed his baby. She was absolutely flummoxed and flabbergasted that anybody would suggest this. She was like, oh, my God, I never even thought of that. You know, I never thought that he might be a criminal or a drug dealer. I just assumed he was needing, you know, baby formula.
It's the naivety, isn't it?
They don't want to see it.
I had this with Ian Dale, who's a friend of mine.
I mean, he's one of the better ones, to be fair.
He's good and he's nice. He's a lovely man. But he's often talks about, where's it, Tunbridge Wells? Is that where he lives?
Yeah.
You know.
But he nearly ran for Parliament, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
But that was a bit of a weird episode.
That was, yeah. It was before I really knew much about but I remember he spoke about that. He was on here.
Yeah.
He was, you know, it's this whole Tunbridge Wells thing. And if I see a Muslim or someone speaking a different language, I'm just curious about it. And it's like, yeah, because you see one out of every 50 people.
Yeah, right.
I'm living on the street where I don't see another white person.
Go to Whitechapel.
Yeah.
You won't be curious then. You'll just be wondering whether you're in Whitechapel or Karachi.
And that's where your listeners, Ian, mostly are living in places like that.
Yeah.
It's that naivety I just find startling because these are smart people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like, but multiculturalism is great because we've got all these Lebanese restaurants. Well, fine, but, you know,
now that we've got the recipe, Mike.
But also that's the upside, you know, let's talk about the downside. Let's talk about the amount of crime that's going on. Let's talk about, of course there are people that live here and have lived here for decades and centuries who have committed crime. Yes, of course, but we don't need to import it anymore.
I was doing Rowan Atkinson. I don't know if you've seen that. It was a skit he did years ago. Yeah. He was sort of.
He did some very funny stuff.
He was pretending to be sort of a conservative back in the day. I guess it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He says, immigration, blah blah. But now that we have the recipes, the implication being, it was very funny.
Very good.
I've got another question to ask you. But where can people find your work, your channel? Where do you want to send them?
Well, we've got YouTube, which is where we do an awful lot of good business. Because you can watch the show on YouTube, and also we put a lot of clips out on YouTube as well, which is kind of the go-to thing. We put Twitter as well, or X. I mean, I still call it Twitter, but it's X, obviously. You can find me at IROMG, which stands for the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. Other people seem to think it stands for Iron Mike, which I've never called myself.
I thought it was that. I thought you might be a sort of, is it West Ham's they call it Iron?
Yeah, no, I'm not a West Ham fan, and I'm not Iron Mike. It was the Independent Republic of Mike Graham, which started as a show in Scotland when I first got into radio in like 2007. Also, Talk has got its own platform. If you've got a Samsung TV or a what's the other one? LV. Yeah. They've got a channel that you can find us on, and you can still watch it on TV. Bizarrely, we're not allowed to tell people this, on because of Ofcom rules. We can't say it. We're not allowed to say it's on a TV channel, but it is.
Right.
That's kind of mad.
Then it's on a TV, but it's not a channel. It's an app.
It's an internal app inside the TV kind of thing,
Are you subject to Ofcom?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because we're a radio station.
Well, what's the problem there? Is it?
I know, you wouldn't have thought. It's complicated. But so we're on DAB+, which is another thing that we were on DAB when we started. We got some really good numbers, and then we got moved away to DAB+. And then also, like I say, there's an app that you can get from the App Store, which is called Talk. There's a podcast daily from the show that you can get. And also I do the Thought Police with Kevin O'Sullivan.
That's right.
Which I think you've already seen Kevin in here, haven't you?
Yeah, lovely Kevin.
That comes out once a week, which is a bit like this, except a lot more sweary.
Yes. I want to do some ad swaps with you guys.
Yes, he was saying that. Yeah.
You know what annoys me about the Talk TV thing? I told Jeremy Kyle this as well.
Yeah.
The thumbnails, when it's you live,
right.
it just says Mike Graham live, and it's just a blue square, and it's your face. I want to know I want to see something about what's going to be on that show.
Yeah.
And they don't. They just put the same default thing. Just Jeremy Kyle, just you.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that guys like yourself are much better at is the kind of mobility, if you like, of your product, because when you work for a big company, it's a lot more difficult to get things done.
It's bureaucracy.
You've probably got one guy that you go, can we do this? Make that happen.
I often do it myself.
Or do it yourself.
Or I'm up at like 3 a.m. checking the latest video, how it's done. Do I need to change the title? Do I need to change that? It's the only way.
And that level of engagement is what makes you a success.
Whereas you can't do it as a company.
As a company, it doesn't really work because you've got too many moving parts and too many people. I can say, like, can we do this? And then, like a week later, we go, have we done it? Yeah. And if you forget, or if you don't remind people, you go, "Did you do that thing I asked?" And it's kind of torturous. And we could be better. We could be a lot better at that. And hopefully, in time we will be. But we're working a lot with the Sun now as well. There's a lot of crossover between what they do. I write quite a bit for the Sun now as well, and do bits and pieces for the Daily Telegraph online when they ask me occasionally, and it's usually pretty much what anti-Starmer piece do you want to write this week? But so there's a lot out there of stuff. And I would also say to people, go back into, YouTube and go back to 2019, where there's some great interviews with me and various different politicians. There's one with Lisa Nandy, which is one of my favourites, where, she's obviously in opposition, but talking about the agreement with the European Union, whether we have one or not. And it's kind of 15 minutes of nonsense where I'm saying to her, well, have we got an agreement or not? And she's like, well, we've got an agreement at the moment, because we're still in the European Union. I said, yeah, but you just said we didn't have an agreement. And she goes, well, yeah, but we want to get an agreement. I said, yeah, but I thought you said we had an agreement. And it just goes backwards and forwards like that.
I've seen
Very
that.
funny.
I feel like I've seen
Very funny. And in the end, she goes, I think you're just trying to be difficult. And to which the mother of my children said, she should try living with you.
91% watching Heretics clips are not subscribed. Quick favour, hit subscribe. Free, takes 2 seconds, and helps us question everything together.